The teenager alien royal offended the human, so he turned and walked away without a word. Floating advertisements flickered above, promoting everything from interstellar delicacies to gravity-defying leisure experiences. Humans, Virelians, Quarrens, and dozens of other species moved about, their shapes and sizes diverse and striking. For Alex Carter, a human diplomat in training, it was overwhelming but also exhilarating. Alex adjusted the strap of his satchel, trying to ignore the flutter of nerves in his chest. Today was supposed to be simple, a diplomatic observation assignment. He was meant to follow Virelian couriers and study the behavior of their young prince, Kale, who was notorious across the station for being proud, sharp-tongued, and notoriously difficult to impress. Alex had read about him in reports. Kale was clever, but arrogant, and he wanted nothing more than to avoid an embarrassing confrontation. Despite his careful preparation, Alex's first misstep came almost immediately. He had just stepped into the main promenade when he collided with someone tall and elegantly clad in shimmering armor that seemed to shift color with the light. A hand shot out to steady him, but the figure didn't speak. "Sorry. I wasn't watching where I was going," Alex stammered, glancing up. The figure was Kale. The teenage alien royal had sharp green eyes that seemed to pierce right through Alex's nervousness. His violet-hued hair fell over one side of his forehead, catching the light, and his posture radiated confidence, bordering on haughtiness. Kale's gaze was cool, and his lips pressed into a thin line. "You are human," Kale said finally, his voice smooth but tinged with disbelief. "And clumsy, it seems." Alex froze, unsure whether the comment was meant to be insulting. I didn't mean to," he began, but Kale raised a hand, signaling him to stop. Kale's expression hardened. "Do humans always stumble into royalty? Or is this a unique talent?" he asked, his tone sharp, as if tasting the words for offense. Alex swallowed nervously. I guess it's unique. I mean, I didn't." Kale shook his head slightly, a gesture of quiet disdain. "Perhaps humans are not meant for elegance. Perhaps for delicacy." Alex blinked. He had studied alien cultures for months, but the pride and rigid etiquette of Virelians still caught him off guard. He wanted to apologize, to explain that it had been a genuine accident, but Kale's eyes bored into him, and for a moment Alex felt like an insect under a magnifying glass. The crowd around them grew still, sensing tension. Aliens paused in their activities, merchants quieted their stalls, and even the floating drones hovering above seemed to slow in their movement. All eyes were on the human and the prince. Alex tried again. "I really didn't mean to offend you. I respect your position, sir." Kale's expression did not change. Instead, he tilted his head slightly as though considering whether to grant mercy. After a moment of silence, he said simply, "Words are weak, human. Actions or silence reveal truth." Without another word, Kale turned sharply and walked away, his long strides gliding over the metal floor with the grace of someone born to command attention. Alex watched him leave, stunned. The prince had not only ignored his explanation but had dismissed him with the faintest trace of disdain. Alex's stomach churned. What had he done wrong? He replayed the exchange over and over in his mind, each time wondering if a single word, a different gesture, could have prevented the offense. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he nearly missed the reactions of the crowd. Whispers ran through the promenade like electricity. Some aliens laughed quietly, others shook their heads in disbelief, and a few, particularly younger Virelians, looked impressed by Kale's unshakable composure. A Quarren merchant, noticing Alex's discomfort, leaned over and whispered, "That was not a mistake a human can easily forget." Alex nodded silently, unsure whether the remark was a warning or simply a statement of fact. He took a deep breath and decided that if he wanted to survive in this station and earn respect, he needed to understand the Virelian prince better, his rules, his pride, his culture. Determined, Alex followed at a discreet distance, weaving through the crowded promenade. Kale moved with confidence, ignoring the stares and whispers, heading toward a section of the station known as the Celestial Gardens, a place reserved for royalty and high-ranking diplomats. The gardens were a marvel of engineering. Floating platforms with crystalline fountains, luminescent plants, and artificial gravity fields that allowed flowers to bloom in midair. It was a place that combined beauty, intellect, and technology, a perfect reflection of the Virelian society. Kale stopped at a platform overlooking the central fountain, arms crossed, eyes scanning the crowd below. Alex paused at the edge of the platform, careful to stay out of sight, and watched. Kale's posture relaxed slightly, though his eyes remained alert. The prince seemed human-like in his curiosity, in the way he absorbed his surroundings. Alex's curiosity grew. Humans had always been adaptive and resourceful, capable of understanding and thriving in situations that other species might find alien or intimidating. And yet, here was Kale, young but immensely proud, expecting the world to bow to him simply because of his birthright. It was a challenge, not just to survive in this encounter, but to prove that humans could meet Virelians on equal footing. A sudden flash of movement caught Alex's eye. A small drone, part of the station's security network, hovered near Kale, projecting a holographic map of the gardens. Kale's hand moved gracefully, manipulating the map with precise gestures. Alex noticed how quickly Kale processed information, predicting pathways and potential obstacles with uncanny accuracy. The prince was sharp, but perhaps not infallible. As Alex studied him, a thought struck him. Every species had strengths and weaknesses. Humans might not have the elegance of Virelians or their inherited knowledge, but they had ingenuity, flexibility, and courage. Perhaps these qualities could bridge the gap, if only he could find the right moment to demonstrate them. Kale turned suddenly, his green eyes sweeping the gardens, and Alex ducked behind a large crystalline bush just in time. The prince's gaze lingered on the spot where Alex had been moments before, but after a tense moment, he moved on. Alex exhaled quietly, heart pounding. He had survived the first encounter without further offense, but he knew the real challenge was only beginning. The day wore on, and Alex shadowed Kale at a careful distance, observing everything the young prince did. Kale interacted with advisors, tested the limits of hovering transport pods, and even examined alien wildlife in the floating gardens. Each action revealed precision, intelligence, and a subtle arrogance. But it also revealed gaps, moments where Kale relied entirely on what he had been taught, failing to anticipate the unexpected. Alex began to plan. If he could find a situation where Kale faced something unfamiliar, something humans excelled at handling, he might turn the prince's disdain into respect. It would not be easy. Kale was proud, and Virelian society rewarded skill and birthright above all else. But humans had overcome far greater odds. Alex clenched his fists, a quiet determination building. The sunlight glow of Zurin Station's artificial sky shifted, signaling the approach of the evening cycle. Crowds thinned, and the gardens glimmered with luminescent flowers reflecting on the polished floors. Alex finally stepped out from his hiding place, keeping a cautious distance, and whispered to himself, "Tomorrow I'll show him." Little did he know, Kale had already noticed him. From the far end of the platform, the prince's sharp eyes followed Alex's movements. A faint smirk appeared on Kale's face, almost imperceptible. The prince had never met a human like Alex before, a human willing to observe, learn, and perhaps challenge. The encounter had ended for the day, but the story was only beginning. Somewhere deep in the labyrinthine corridors of Zurin Station, two very different beings, separated by species, pride, and expectation, were destined to cross paths again. And when they did, the universe would take notice. As Alex walked back to his temporary quarters, he felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The first step had been taken. The collision, the offense, the awkward silence. It was all part of a larger plan, even if Kale had not realized it. Alex knew that humans had survived in every corner of the galaxy because of courage, adaptability, and a willingness to face the unknown. And if anyone could turn an insult into an opportunity, it was him. And somewhere above, the young alien prince, walking through the same glittering gardens, thought the same thing in his own way. Maybe humans were more interesting than he had first believed. The morning light in Zurin Station shimmered across the polished floors of the celestial garden, casting reflections that danced like stars. Alex Carter adjusted his satchel, feeling a mix of nervous excitement and determination. Yesterday's encounter with Kale, the young Virelian prince, had left him unsettled, but it had also sparked something within him, a desire to prove that humans were more than clumsy outsiders in the galaxy. Word of the incident had traveled faster than Alex expected. Whispers in the promenade, nods from passing diplomats, and curious glances from merchants all suggested that Kale's subtle dismissal had become a topic of interest. The human community on the station had already begun speculating about how Alex would respond. Would he retreat quietly, as most humans might, or would he take the daring path of engagement? Alex chose the latter. He had learned, through observation and careful research, that Kale valued action more than words. Pride and skill were the currency of Virelian society, and only deeds could earn respect. With that in mind, Alex approached the Virelian Cultural Office, a building as elegant as it was imposing. The office's walls shimmered with embedded crystals that displayed holographic maps and charts of Virelia's history. A receptionist, a middle-aged Virelian with calm violet eyes, regarded Alex with a raised brow. "Human Carter," she said, her voice smooth and formal. "You are requesting permission to participate in a Virelian cultural trial." "Yes," Alex replied, standing straighter despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. "I want to demonstrate my abilities and perhaps understand your culture better." The receptionist studied him for a moment before nodding. "It is rare for a human to request such a trial. Very well. Your presence will be observed by the Council of Youth and by Prince Kale himself." Alex's heart skipped a beat. This was his chance, the moment where human ingenuity could shine in the eyes of the alien prince. He didn't know exactly what the trial would entail, but he had prepared himself for unpredictability. By mid-afternoon, Alex found himself at the edge of the zero-gravity relay course, a sprawling structure that hung over the station's central atrium like a floating city of platforms, tunnels, and swinging bridges. Participants were expected to navigate it using a combination of physical agility, intelligence, and problem-solving skills. The course had been designed for Virelian youth, those born into families of power and prestige, and humans were rarely allowed to attempt it. Kale was already there, standing at the starting platform with his arms crossed. His expression was unreadable, though his sharp eyes followed Alex's every move. Around them, other young Virelians murmured and whispered, some with amusement, some with curiosity. Alex felt their eyes on him, their silent questions echoing in his mind. Can a human compete? Can he survive? A horn-like signal sounded, and the trial began. Participants leapt into the course, their forms gliding effortlessly through zero-gravity tunnels. Alex hesitated for a moment, gripping a handlebar, then propelled himself forward, pushing off the platform with all the strength he could muster. The sensation of weightlessness was exhilarating and terrifying at once. The first obstacle was a spinning ring of floating platforms. Each platform rotated slowly around a central axis, and the participant had to leap from one to another without touching the floor. Alex timed his movements carefully, observing the rhythm. Unlike the Virelians, who relied on precision and prior training, Alex relied on observation and quick adjustment. With a deep breath, he leapt, landing securely on the first platform, then the next and the next. His heart raced, but he felt the thrill of succeeding in something no human had attempted before. Kale watched in silence, his green eyes narrowing. He had expected the human to falter immediately, yet Alex's determination and adaptability caught his attention. There was something in the human's movements, resourcefulness, unpredictability, that made Kale pause, even if only for a fraction of a second. The next section of the relay was more difficult. A series of floating control panels required participants to solve a sequence of puzzles in zero gravity while maintaining balance on thin, moving platforms. Alex had studied Weyerlean logic puzzles in advance, and he approached the panels methodically. His fingers danced across the glowing buttons, pressing sequences that made the panels shift and illuminate. A sudden tilt in the platform nearly sent him spinning into the void. Alex reacted instinctively, adjusting his center of gravity and gripping a nearby handrail. He had no formal training in zero-gravity maneuvering, but his ability to improvise saved him. Around him, some Weyerlean spectators gasped. He was surviving against all odds, and surviving in ways that no Weyerlean would dare. Kale's attention sharpened. The prince had been raised to value inherited skill, not improvisation. Yet here was a human, using creativity and courage to succeed where rules alone might fail. Kale's pride, though still present, began to shift subtly into intrigue. The final obstacle was a narrow bridge suspended above the atrium. The bridge was sleek, metallic, and seemingly simple, but it was rigged with subtle motion sensors that triggered spinning barriers if missteps occurred. Many participants approached it cautiously, calculating every step. Alex, however, took a deep breath and relied on intuition. He moved quickly but carefully, adjusting to the spinning barriers with split-second timing. Near the center of the bridge, a sudden gust of artificial wind threatened to throw him off balance. Alex's instincts kicked in. He pivoted, twisted his body, and used his momentum to stay on course. The crowd below erupted in murmurs and impressed exclamations. Even Kale's advisors, who had initially doubted him, exchanged glances of astonishment. Finally, Alex reached the end of the relay. He landed firmly on the final platform, chest heaving, hair slightly mussed, and eyes shining with exhilaration. He looked up at Kale, expecting skepticism, perhaps even disdain. Instead, he saw something unexpected. Kale's eyes were fixed on him, sharp yet thoughtful, with a trace of respect barely hidden behind the prince's usual aloof expression. Kale nodded once, a small gesture but significant. The trial ended and participants gathered for debriefing. Kale approached, his movements smooth, deliberate. "Human," he said, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made Alex's stomach tighten. "You survived. Not because you followed rules, but because you adapted." Alex nodded, trying to hide his relief. I did what I could. I guess humans are good at improvising." Kale's lips curved ever so slightly, almost a smile. "Adaptation is useful. Few Weyerleans rely on it. Perhaps humans have unique strengths." Alex's heart swelled. This was not a declaration of friendship, but it was acknowledgement, and in Kale's world, acknowledgement was a step toward respect. The rest of the day passed in a blur of observation, discussion, and quiet reflection. Alex stayed close to the relay course, making mental notes of Kale's reactions, analyzing each subtle expression and gesture. He realized that earning respect from Kale would not be a single event, but a series of challenges where humans could shine in ways Weyerleans rarely expected. By evening, the celestial gardens glowed softly under the artificial sky. Alex stood on a balcony, watching the luminescent flowers sway in the light breeze. He reflected on the day's events, his body tired but his mind alive with possibilities. The trial had shown him that humans were not powerless in the face of alien pride. They could use courage, intelligence, and adaptability to make a mark even in the most challenging situations. Kale, watching from across the gardens, observed Alex in silence. The prince's pride remained, but the seeds of curiosity had been planted. He wondered quietly if humans were truly as clever and resourceful as they seemed. Could one human, he thought, alter the way Violians viewed the species entirely? The day ended with no words exchanged between them, yet something unspoken passed in the quiet between human and alien. A challenge had been met, and in meeting it, Alex had begun to carve a place for himself, not as a subordinate, not as a curiosity, but as someone whose abilities could not be ignored. As Alex returned to his quarters, the distant hum of the station felt different, less overwhelming, less intimidating. He had faced the impossible and survived, and the knowledge filled him with quiet confidence. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges and perhaps new opportunities to prove the strength of humanity. And somewhere in the glowing gardens, Kale remained, contemplating the human who had dared to step into a world where most outsiders would falter. The prince did not yet fully understand Alex, nor did he fully respect him, but he knew one thing: the human was unlike any Violian youth he had ever met. And that, Kale realized, was worth paying attention to. The day began with a soft golden glow spilling across the floating platforms of Zurin Station. Alex Carter adjusted his satchel nervously, feeling a mix of anticipation and determination. Yesterday's relay had given him a small victory, but he knew the real test was ahead. Kale, the young Violian prince, had observed him carefully, and the prince's interest, or perhaps curiosity, was growing. Today, Alex would face a more dangerous challenge. The Violian Council of Youth had arranged a test designed to measure intelligence, courage, and adaptability simultaneously. Unlike the relay, this trial was unpredictable, requiring participants to navigate a complex maze of shifting platforms, energy fields, and logic puzzles in zero gravity. Most humans would have avoided it entirely, but Alex had no intention of stepping back. The participants gathered at the starting platform, their forms reflecting the shimmering light of the station. Kale stood among them, arms crossed, observing quietly. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes occasionally flicked toward Alex with a sharp intensity that made the human swallow hard. The trial began with a low, resonant hum. Sections of the maze shifted instantly, platforms sliding into new positions, tunnels twisting unpredictably. Participants were required to adapt immediately, analyzing patterns, calculating trajectories, and reacting to hazards. Many Violian youths hesitated at the sudden changes, relying on memory and prior training rather than improvisation. Alex took a deep breath and focused. Humans were not bound by rigid expectations. Adaptability was their strength. As he propelled himself into the maze, his mind worked quickly, observing the motion of platforms and predicting the timing of the rotating energy fields. Unlike the other participants, Alex allowed instinct to guide him, adjusting his approach with every unexpected shift. The first obstacle was a narrow corridor with rotating barriers. Violian participants paused, waiting for the exact alignment to pass through safely. Alex, however, calculated the rhythm quickly and darted through the gaps, his body twisting midair to avoid contact. A collective gasp rose from the crowd below. The human moved with surprising agility, turning potential mistakes into opportunities. Kale's eyes followed Alex intently. The prince had expected hesitation, perhaps fear, but the human moved with confidence, even in the face of danger. There was something about Alex's approach, calculated yet flexible, that intrigued Kale. He had been taught to respect skill, but this human displayed a different kind of intelligence, one born not from inheritance, but from thinking and reacting in the moment. The next section presented a more complicated challenge. Participants were required to solve a sequence of logic panels to open a pathway forward. Incorrect sequences triggered alarms, causing the platforms to shift, and the energy fields to intensify. Many Virelians hesitated, double-checking their memorized patterns. Alex, however, approached the panels differently. He examined the sequence carefully, observing subtle visual cues and patterns that the panels emitted. Unlike the other participants, he did not rely on repetition or memorization. Instead, he thought creatively, identifying shortcuts and alternative solutions that no Virelian would attempt. When he pressed the final panel, the pathway opened smoothly, and he propelled himself forward, leaving the hesitant Virelians behind. Kale's green eyes narrowed slightly. He had seen many youths attempt this challenge, but none had adapted so quickly. A small, almost imperceptible hint of respect flickered across his features. Alex's success was not merely physical, it was mental, creative, and daring. The most dangerous part of the trial awaited at the central chamber, a suspended platform over the atrium, lined with spinning energy barriers and unstable handrails. Participants were required to cross while solving a final puzzle that combined logic, observation, and timing. Mistakes could lead to falling into the empty space below, a non-lethal but humiliating setback that would end the trial immediately. Alex approached carefully, analyzing the barriers and timing their rotation. He noticed a small gap in the sequence, a brief moment where the barriers did not align perfectly. Using human intuition, he calculated the exact moment to jump, twisting midair to avoid contact. The platform beneath him shifted, but he adjusted instantly, gripping a handrail and swinging safely to the next section. A sudden complication arose. One of the energy barriers malfunctioned, spinning unpredictably and sending a participant into a panic. Alex noticed Kale's gaze on the scene. The prince's usually calm expression showed the faintest trace of concern. Without hesitation, Alex acted. He reached out, using his momentum and understanding of the environment to push the Virelian youth to a safer position, preventing a collision with the barrier. Kale's eyes widened slightly. The human had not only survived the challenge, but had also saved someone else in the process. In Virelian society, saving another participant through quick thinking was rare, as most youths focused solely on personal achievement. Alex's action demonstrated courage, resourcefulness, and empathy, the qualities Virelians admired but rarely associated with humans. The final puzzle involved a holographic maze projected above the platform. Participants were required to navigate the maze by predicting the movement of shifting nodes while simultaneously maintaining balance on the unstable floor. Alex's heart pounded as he assessed the patterns. Unlike the other participants, he did not attempt to memorize sequences. Instead, he observed, adapted, and adjusted on the fly, using instinct and logic together. Minutes passed like hours, but Alex remained focused. Step by step, jump by jump, he maneuvered through the holographic maze, his movements precise yet flexible. The crowd below watched in astonishment, whispers of admiration spreading through the spectators. Even Kale's advisors exchanged glances, noting the human's unorthodox yet effective approach. Finally, Alex reached the end of the trial. He landed on the final platform, chest heaving, sweat clinging to his brow. Silence fell across the atrium, followed by a wave of murmurs and astonished applause. Alex looked toward Kale, unsure of what to expect. Kale approached slowly, his steps deliberate. The prince's usual pride remained, but his eyes now held a spark of curiosity and consideration. "Human," he said, his voice calm yet firm, "you did not merely survive. You adapted, you observed, and you acted when it mattered most." Alex nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I did what I had to. Humans survive by thinking, by adapting, by facing the unexpected." Kale's gaze lingered on him, sharp yet thoughtful. "Perhaps humans possess strengths that Virelians underestimate. It is intriguing." The trial concluded with no further words, yet the unspoken acknowledgement was powerful. Alex had not only demonstrated human ingenuity and courage, but had also begun to shift the perception of a young alien prince. Kale, though still reserved, now regarded humans as capable of more than he had previously imagined. As participants were escorted from the central chamber, Alex took a moment to reflect. The trial had been grueling, requiring every ounce of focus, intelligence, and courage he could muster. Yet he had succeeded, and in doing so, he had begun to earn the respect of someone whose judgment could influence an entire society. Kale followed at a distance, observing Alex as he interacted with other participants and offered advice where needed. The prince's sharp mind noted the human's ability to remain calm under pressure, to think creatively, and to act decisively. These qualities were rare among Virelians, who relied heavily on inherited skills and training. Alex's presence challenged the prince's assumptions, planting the seed of admiration. Later, as the sunlight glow of Zurin Station shifted to the soft colors of evening, Alex found himself on a balcony overlooking the atrium. He felt exhausted but exhilarated, his mind alive with possibilities. The trial had proven one thing: humans could compete, adapt, and even excel in a world designed to favor alien perfection. Kale remained in the shadows, observing silently. The young prince had expected humans to falter, to disappoint, or to retreat. Yet Alex had done none of these things. He had met every challenge with courage, creativity, and empathy. Kale's curiosity deepened, though his pride still prevented him from fully expressing it. As the artificial sky dimmed, casting a gentle glow over the station, Alex knew that the trials were only the beginning. Kale's respect had not been fully earned, but it had been glimpsed. And in the complex dance of interstellar diplomacy, glimpses often mattered more than words. The day ended with no celebration, no accolades, only quiet reflection. Yet in that silence, both human and alien understood something unspoken. The world was changing, and perhaps, together, they could shape it in ways neither species had imagined. Alex returned to his quarters, physically tired but mentally energized. He had faced the impossible, acted decisively, and begun to carve a place for himself in a society that had initially underestimated him. The trials had revealed not just the strength of humans, but the potential for understanding, collaboration, and mutual respect across species. And somewhere above, Kale remained, watching the patterns of the floating platforms in thought. The young prince realized that humans were not just resilient. They were clever, resourceful, and capable of surprising even the most proud alien minds. For the first time, Kale wondered quietly. Perhaps one human could change the way Virelians viewed an entire species. And if that human was Alex, perhaps the future held possibilities he had never considered. The glow of Zurin Station's artificial sun filtered through the crystalline walls of the celestial gardens, casting long streaks of light across the floating platforms. Alex Carter moved cautiously, his mind still buzzing from the events of the previous trials. Each test had revealed more about Kale, the young Virelian prince, and about himself. Humans were not supposed to excel in Virelian challenges, yet he had survived, adapted, and even earned the faintest trace of recognition from Kale. Despite the prince's unspoken acknowledgement, Alex knew that admiration alone would not be enough. To earn true respect, he needed a deeper understanding of Kale, his culture, and the principles that guided Virelians. And perhaps, more importantly, he needed Kale to understand humans, not as fragile outsiders but as resilient and capable beings. Kale, meanwhile, observed from a distance. The young prince had spent hours reviewing the events of the trials in his mind. Alex had survived situations that even trained Virelians struggled with, using logic, creativity, and instinct. But there was something else, something the prince could not ignore. The human had shown empathy, not just for himself but for others. In Kale's world, most youths acted solely for personal success. Alex had acted differently, risking his position to help another participant during the last trial. Kale found himself thinking more about Alex than he expected. Pride had always guided him, and he had been taught to value inherited skill and knowledge above all else. Yet the human had demonstrated a strength that could not be measured by training or birthright. The opportunity for a private conversation came sooner than either of them expected. A minor emergency occurred in the garden's floating platforms. One of the maintenance drones malfunctioned, sending a section of the platform into an unstable orbit. The Council of Youth quickly ordered all participants to evacuate, but Kale noticed Alex moving toward the malfunctioning area without hesitation. "Human," Kale called sharply, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Step back, it's dangerous." Alex glanced at the prince, determination in his eyes. "I can handle it. I can help stabilize it." Kale hesitated. Humans were unpredictable, and while he respected their adaptability, their recklessness often worried him. But something in Alex's expression convinced him to allow it. "Fine," Kale said finally, his tone controlled but firm. "But follow my instructions exactly." Alex nodded and moved closer. The platform shifted under his feet, a wave of tension running through the metal beneath him. He studied the malfunctioning drone, noting its misaligned rotors and erratic energy output. Using tools from his satchel, he adjusted the device's controls, improvising a solution based on observation and intuition. Kale watched silently, his arms crossed but his gaze intent. He noticed how Alex analyzed the problem quickly, how he adapted to the shifting platform, and how he remained calm despite the danger. After a tense few minutes, the drone stabilized, its systems humming evenly. The platform's orbit returned to normal. The crowd erupted in soft applause, but Kale's attention was focused solely on Alex. "You acted decisively," Kale said, stepping closer. "Most humans would have panicked." Alex smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Humans have to think quickly. We face dangers every day, even if they aren't as dramatic as this." Kale considered the words. "You are different from what I expected. Your species adapts. You act with purpose. Yet you also show concern for others. That is unusual." Alex's expression softened. "We survive not just by strength, but by thinking, by caring, by helping each other. Maybe that's why humans have spread across so many worlds." The prince's green eyes studied him, curiosity growing. Kale had always believed in the supremacy of Virelian skill, but Alex's words challenged that belief. He had never considered that humans might succeed not despite their differences, but because of them. "Perhaps your species has qualities we underestimate," Kale admitted quietly, almost to himself. "Creativity, resilience, empathy. These traits are valuable." Alex nodded. "Every species has strengths. Humans just happen to survive by adapting and thinking differently. That doesn't make us weaker. It makes us capable in ways that might surprise you." Kale's gaze softened slightly, though his pride remained intact. For the first time, he spoke without judgment, without the sharpness that had marked their first encounter. "You think carefully, act decisively, and yet you consider others. That is rare. Even among Virelians, few possess all three qualities." The human felt a sense of cautious relief. This was more than recognition, it was understanding. Kale was beginning to see humans not as fragile, untrained outsiders, but as capable, intelligent, and resourceful beings. As they walked together across the stabilized platform, Kale asked, "Tell me, how does a human approach challenges? How do you decide what to do in situations that are unpredictable?" Alex thought for a moment, considering how to explain the essence of human adaptability. "We observe first, learn quickly, and then act. We combine what we know with what we notice, and we adjust when things change. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but we keep going. That's how humans survive and thrive." Kale listened intently. There was a quiet respect in his posture that had never been there before. I see your approach is flexible. Violians often rely on training and rules, yet humans improvise. That is efficient in a way, Alex smiled. It's not always perfect, but it works more often than you might think. And sometimes, thinking differently allows us to see solutions others might miss. The prince's eyes softened further. Perhaps there is value in learning from humans, if one is willing to accept it. Alex nodded. And perhaps there is value in learning from Violians too. You have precision, discipline, and knowledge that humans can admire and emulate. We both have strengths. For a long moment they walked in silence, the hum of the station around them. Kale's usual arrogance had softened, replaced by curiosity and contemplation. Alex, for his part, felt a quiet satisfaction. He was no longer just a human trying to survive. He was a human being understood, even partially, by one of the most difficult aliens he had ever met. Suddenly, Kale spoke again, his voice firmer now, though still lacking its earlier disdain. You saved the participant yesterday during the trial. That was unexpected. Most would have acted only for themselves. Why did you intervene? Alex's eyes met Kale's. Because it was the right thing to do. Helping others isn't weakness. It's strength. Humans survive because we work together, not just for ourselves but for each other. That's how we endure challenges. Kale's gaze lingered on him, and for a brief moment the prince seemed thoughtful, even introspective. Strength through consideration, that is, not something I had truly seen before. Perhaps humans are more remarkable than I believed. The acknowledgement, though quiet, carried weight. In Violian society, respect was earned through skill, courage, and the demonstration of unique qualities. Alex had displayed all three, and in doing so, he had begun to reshape Kale's understanding of humanity. The rest of the day passed in observation and discussion. Alex assisted with minor tasks around the gardens, demonstrating problem-solving, attentiveness, and collaboration. Kale followed, occasionally offering subtle guidance or questioning choices. Their exchanges were brief but meaningful, forming a silent dialogue of understanding that transcended words. By evening, the gardens glowed with luminescent light, and the floating platforms reflected the soft hues of the artificial sky. Alex and Kale stood side by side, looking out over the atrium. For the first time there was no tension, no judgment, only mutual observation and quiet respect. Kale spoke finally, his tone deliberate. You have shown me qualities that I had not considered in humans. Courage, intelligence, empathy. These are admirable. Perhaps I have underestimated your species. Alex nodded. And perhaps Violians have qualities that humans can learn from as well. Precision, discipline, planning, strengths that can complement human adaptability. The prince's eyes softened further. It seems we both have much to teach each other. Perhaps this is only the beginning. Alex smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of relief and satisfaction. This was more than a personal victory. It was a step toward understanding between species. Kale's pride remained, but it was tempered by curiosity, respect, and a recognition of human strength. As the night deepened over Zurin Station, the two stood together in the glowing gardens, their silhouettes framed by floating platforms and shimmering flowers. Neither spoke further, but an unspoken bond had formed. Alex had faced impossible challenges, adapted, and earned the quiet admiration of an alien prince. Kale, in turn, had begun to see humans not as weak outsiders, but as beings of unique strength, capable of thought, courage, and empathy. And somewhere in the quiet of the gardens, both understood the truth. Their encounter had changed something fundamental. The path ahead would not be easy, but together, or at least through mutual understanding, they could face the challenges of an interstellar world in ways neither species had imagined. The turning point had arrived. Alex had earned more than survival. He had earned recognition, understanding, and the possibility of a new kind of friendship. Kale, though still proud, had begun to see that humans were more than their appearance or status suggested. The night settled softly over the station, and the stars above shimmered like silent witnesses to a story still unfolding. Two beings, human and alien, had crossed barriers of pride, assumption, and expectation. And in that crossing, something remarkable had begun. The start of mutual respect, understanding, and the promise of shared triumphs yet to come. The celestial gardens of Zurin Station glowed in the soft light of the artificial sun, the floating platforms shimmering like scattered jewels. Alex Carter moved among the crowd, his heart beating fast. Today was the culmination of weeks of trials, challenges, and quiet observation. Kale, the young Virelian prince, had watched him closely through every moment, and now, the final test was not a physical or mental challenge, but a test of recognition, trust, and respect. A large audience had gathered, Virelian advisors, diplomats from other worlds, human observers, and curious citizens of the station. A ceremonial platform had been constructed at the center of the gardens, a place where achievements were honored and promises of diplomacy were forged. The air was thick with anticipation. Alex adjusted his satchel nervously, trying to steady his breathing. He had faced impossible obstacles before, zero-gravity relays, unstable platforms, and shifting logic mazes, but today was different. Today, he would stand before Kale in a formal setting, not as a student or outsider, but as a human being seeking acknowledgement in a world that had always favored alien skill and birthright. Kale appeared at the ceremonial platform, moving with his usual grace and quiet authority. His violet-hued hair caught the light as he looked out over the crowd, and then his sharp green eyes found Alex. For the first time, the young prince approached the human with deliberate purpose, not merely observation. The audience fell silent as Kale raised a hand. "Today," the prince began, his voice clear and commanding, "we recognize achievements not just of skill, but of courage, intelligence, and character. Qualities that define individuals regardless of species, origin, or birthright." Alex felt a rush of nerves. The prince's gaze was fixed on him, piercing but not threatening. The air seemed charged with tension and anticipation. Kale continued, "This human, Alex Carter, has faced challenges designed for Virelian youth. He has navigated trials with ingenuity, adaptability, and bravery. He has acted decisively when others hesitated, and he has shown concern for others in moments of danger." Whispers rippled through the audience. Humans rarely received such recognition in formal Virelian ceremonies, and yet here they were, witnessing Alex being acknowledged not only as competent but as remarkable. Kale's eyes softened slightly, and he stepped closer. Through his actions, Alex has demonstrated that humans possess qualities often underestimated by my people: creativity, resilience, and empathy. These qualities are not weaknesses, they are strengths, and they have earned my respect. Alex felt his chest swell. Respect from a Virelian prince publicly declared was more than he had dared hope for. He bowed slightly, a gesture of gratitude and humility. Kale continued, addressing the entire assembly. "Let this moment serve as a reminder that strength takes many forms. Skill and knowledge are valuable, but courage, adaptability, and empathy can shape the outcome of any challenge, even across worlds." The audience erupted in applause. Humans and aliens alike stood in admiration. Alex's colleagues from the human delegation exchanged proud smiles, while Kale's advisors looked thoughtfully at the young prince. The recognition was not merely ceremonial. It was a statement about the potential of cooperation, understanding, and respect between species. After the applause subsided, Kale turned to Alex personally. "You have changed my understanding of humans," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "I underestimated your species. Your courage and ingenuity have reminded me that strength is not only inherited, it can be developed, nurtured, and displayed in ways that surprise even the most experienced observer. Alex smiled, feeling a sense of warmth and accomplishment. Thank you, Kale. I have also learned much from you and your people. Precision, discipline, planning, qualities that humans can admire and emulate. We each have strengths, and together they can achieve more than either species could alone. Kale regarded him silently for a moment. Then, for the first time, the prince extended his hand, not as a gesture of authority but of friendship. Alex took it, and the two shook firmly. The gesture was simple yet profound. Human and Virelian, equal and respected, standing together. The ceremony concluded with formal acknowledgement from the Council of Youth. Alex's achievements were recorded in the station's archives, a symbol of what humans could accomplish when determination met opportunity. Yet the true significance lay not in records or applause, but in the unspoken understanding between two very different beings who had challenged assumptions and discovered common ground. As the crowd dispersed, Kale and Alex walked together through the gardens. Floating flowers reflected the light of the artificial sky, and the soft hum of the station's engines provided a gentle background. They spoke quietly, exchanging observations, thoughts, and reflections. "You surprised me," Kale admitted. "I expected hesitation, mistakes, fear. Instead, you showed focus, courage, and quick thinking." Alex laughed softly. "I wasn't perfect, but I tried to make the best of it. Humans survive by adapting. We face the unknown with creativity and courage, and sometimes we help others along the way." Kale nodded. "That is something my people often overlook. Strength is rarely measured by compassion or flexibility, yet you displayed both. I respect that." They walked in silence for a moment, each lost in thought. Alex considered how far he had come, from the moment he collided with Kale to this very day, standing beside a prince who had once dismissed him. And Kale thought about humans differently now, not as outsiders or curiosities, but as capable allies and individuals worthy of respect. "You know," Kale said finally, a hint of a smile in his tone, "I had underestimated humans. I assumed weakness where there was none. I assumed hesitation where there was courage. I assumed ignorance where there was ingenuity. You have changed that perspective." Alex smiled. "I'm glad. Humans have faced impossible odds across the galaxy. We survive, we adapt, we learn. And sometimes we teach others to see beyond assumptions." Kale's gaze lingered on him. "Perhaps humans and Virelians have more to gain by working together than by standing apart. I see potential now, shared strengths, mutual respect, cooperation. Perhaps this is the start of something greater than either species alone." Alex felt a spark of hope. "I believe it can be. When we respect each other's strengths, we can accomplish more than we imagine, and we can face challenges together, no matter how impossible they seem." The gardens were quiet now, the crowd long gone, leaving only the gentle glow of floating platforms and luminescent flowers. The night cycle had begun, casting soft colors across the station. Alex and Kale stood side by side, looking out over the atrium. For the first time, there was no tension, no competition, only understanding and the possibility of partnership. Kale spoke again, quietly, almost to himself. "Perhaps the universe is not meant to divide species by weakness or strength, by birth or origin. Perhaps it is meant to test the courage and adaptability of all beings and reward those who rise to the challenge." Alex nodded. "I think that's true, and maybe, just maybe, we can rise together." A gentle breeze from the gardens, artificial atmosphere, rustled the floating flowers. The stars beyond the station glimmered like distant witnesses to a new chapter in the history of human and Virelian interaction. The moment was quiet, yet full of promise. Kale's expression softened further. "I underestimated you, Alex, and perhaps I underestimated humanity. Your ingenuity, resilience, and empathy, they are remarkable. I will remember this lesson, Alex smiled. And I will remember that respect and understanding can build bridges across worlds, even when the odds seem impossible. As they walked back toward the central platform, the bond between them was clear. It was not yet friendship in the conventional sense, but it was the foundation of trust, respect, and recognition. A human had faced impossible challenges, adapted and demonstrated qualities that even a proud Virelian prince could not ignore. And a young alien royal had opened his mind, acknowledging that strength came in many forms. By the time they reached the platform, the soft glow of Zurin Station's artificial night sky had spread across the gardens. The floating platforms reflected the light in delicate patterns, creating an atmosphere of calm and quiet triumph. Alex and Kale paused, standing side by side, and looked out at the city below. For the first time, the barriers between species seemed less rigid. Understanding and respect had taken root, growing silently, yet firmly. The story of one human and one alien prince had become something larger, a symbol of cooperation, courage, and the potential for interstellar harmony. Kale turned to Alex, a faint smile touching his lips. You have taught me something valuable. Perhaps humans are not just survivors. Perhaps they are partners in shaping the future, Alex nodded. And perhaps Virelians are not just rulers by birth. Perhaps they can be allies, teachers, and friends. Together, we can face challenges that neither species could face alone. The station's lights shimmered softly, casting a warm glow over the two figures. The moment was simple, yet profound. In that quiet understanding, the future seemed full of possibilities. Kale extended his hand once more, not as a prince commanding respect, but as a being acknowledging another. Alex took it firmly, and in that handshake a promise was made, not of allegiance, but of mutual recognition, respect, and the potential for greatness together. As the night deepened over Zurin Station, two figures stood in quiet triumph. The human had faced the impossible and earned respect. The alien prince had opened his mind and heart to understanding. And in that shared moment, a new chapter began, one where humans and Virelians could look beyond differences and see the strength that each could offer. The universe was vast, full of challenges and uncertainty, yet for Alex Carter and Kale, the path ahead was clear. Together, or at least through mutual respect, they could face any obstacle, achieve remarkable feats, and inspire others to do the same. And somewhere in the quiet of the floating gardens, beneath the glow of the artificial sun and the glimmer of distant stars, a story of courage, adaptability, and respect reached its first triumphant conclusion.